Deep in Silicon Valley, a small circle of tech pioneers, the ones who built a payments empire, decided their next big startup wasn't going to be a company. It was going to be the government itself. We're about to break down their audacious plan to literally hack the state.
So, that brings us to the central question, right? How on earth did a handful of tech founders put together a playbook to, well, reboot the entire operating system of American democracy? Let's dive in.
First things first, we've got to understand who we're even talking about. They have a nickname that's part inside joke, part, well, a pretty serious statement of intent: the Silicon Valley Mafia.
Now you should know, the name PayPal Mafia wasn't something they cooked up themselves. It actually came from a famous Fortune magazine article way back in 2007. And it just stuck, because it perfectly described this group. After they all cashed out from the eBay sale, they didn't just retire to a private island. No way. They spread out across the valley with deep pockets and a shared mindset, and they started a whole new wave of companies that, well, basically changed the world.
And just look at the scale of their impact. It is absolutely staggering. We're not talking about one or two hits here. You've got Peter Thiel, kind of the dawn of the group, who founded the massive data firm Palantir. You have Elon Musk, who's literally aiming for Mars while remaking cars and social media. And then there's the founders of LinkedIn, YouTube, and Yelp. I mean, this network has fundamentally built the digital world that you and I live in every single day.
But this isn't just about building awesome tech. This network is driven by a really radical political vision. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the ideology behind their post-democratic playbook.
Okay, so here's the absolute core of their thinking. They look at democracy like a software engineer looks at old code. They see it as a buggy, slow, outdated operating system. And what do you do with old software? You don't waste time patching it. You just delete it and install something brand new, something fast and efficient. A lot of this thinking is inspired by a pretty controversial figure, the neoreactionary blogger Yarvin, who basically championed this idea of replacing democracy with something that looks a lot more like a corporation.
And look, this isn't us reading between the lines. It's right there, in black and white, from Peter Thiel himself. This single quote is seen as a huge turning point, a clear statement that, in his view, the kind of freedom that lets innovators and capital thrive just can't exist alongside mass democracy.
So their whole ideology really stands on a few key pillars. It all starts with that idea of a firm state, run by a powerful CEO-type leader, an American Caesar. But how do you justify taking that much power? Well, they lean on this kind of obscure theological concept called the katechon. The basic idea is that this tech elite sees itself as the only thing holding back total societal collapse. And if that's the case, well then bypassing the slow, messy process of democracy isn't just an option, it's a duty. Let's just put it side by side, right? On one hand, you have the democratic state we know, with elections, checks and balances, public debate. On the other hand, you've got their vision of the firm state, a single powerful leader, a loyal elite of tech experts making all the calls, and decisions driven by the cold, hard logic of algorithms and capital, not by what people think.
Okay, so that's the why. That's the ideology. But what about the how? What's the actual game plan for making this firm state a reality? Let's get into the strategy. So what's fascinating here is how their strategy changed over time. Early on, a lot of these folks were all about exit. You know, the idea of building private islands or floating cities to just escape the government entirely. But when that turned out to be, well, not so practical, the game plan pivoted. It became infiltration. The new goal wasn't to leave the state, but to take it over from the inside. And they apparently have a 4-step process for this, called Seize the Administrative State. Step 1, use a political battering ram figure to just smash public trust in all the existing institutions. Step 2, mass firings. Get rid of thousands of independent professional civil servants. Step 3, replace them with your own people, loyalists from the tech network. And finally, Step 4, rebuild the entire government to run like a tech company, lean, fast, and totally top-down.
And make no mistake, this isn't just some theory scribbled on a whiteboard. Let's look at how this technocratic takeover is allegedly being put into motion.
So what would this actually look like in practice? Well, according to the playbook, it means putting key network members into positions of serious power. Picture this: Vance, Thiel's protege, as vice president. Elon Musk heading up a brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE for short. And another PayPal alum, David Sachs, as the go-to guy for AI and crypto. That's the infiltration strategy in action.
And Vance, as the key political player in this whole vision, has been incredibly clear about the mission.
This quote right here, it's literally step 2 of the plan, stated out loud. Dismantle the independent government workforce and install your own loyalists. And Musk's proposed Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, is the perfect example of this philosophy. The mission is to apply that Thiel playbook directly to the federal government. That means radical cuts to staff and spending, using what Musk himself calls a chainsaw approach. The goal is to treat the state exactly like that buggy operating system. Delete the old parts and reinstall a sleek, new version.
But you know, this whole takeover isn't just about shuffling people around. It's about replacing human processes with software. We're talking about critical government functions, intelligence, military operations, even tax collection being run on platforms like Palantir. That means private, corporate algorithms could be making decisions at the very heart of our government, decisions that used to be made by public servants.
And it's so important to understand that this network's ambitions don't just stop at the US border. No, its influence stretches all the way across the Atlantic.
Over in Europe, Thiel's influence is a multi-pronged attack, really. First, you have his software. Palantir is a key tool for police and intelligence agencies all across the EU. Then there's the money. His venture fund, Valor Ventures, is pouring cash into the European tech scene, funding giants like N26. And finally, there's media, where he cultivates influence with major publishers, creating this powerful feedback loop between capital and ideology. All of this brings us to the one massive question at the center of this whole playbook. What actually happens when a country's entire operating system gets rewritten, not by its own citizens, but by a tiny, unelected, and incredibly powerful tech elite?